but we get nasty comments more often than you would think. So on this trip, just the return home, we had a tight connection and Liam was super hungry, which can be a prelude to a meltdown. So we grabbed something as quick as we could to take on the plane and had arranged for pre-boarding since it was Southwest. So we're like, yay, we did it. We ready to congratulate ourselves for making it to the gate on time to board. The gate agent was like, well, you've missed pre-boarding. I'm like, yes, our flight was delayed. And then he proceeds to tell me I had the wrong boarding passes and basically to get myself organized. I literally had this stack of boarding passes, right? Because we were on God knows how many flights. And he's looking at the boarding passes with the stamp, giving us early boarding access because of a disability with the code and everything. And he's essentially arguing with me because I guess he thought I was gaming the system. Who knows, right? Then there was this elderly gentleman who asked, this is on a different flight, same trip, asked my daughter with a smile on his face, what's your excuse? As we're waiting to pre-board. And when I called him on it, I know you're shocked that I would do that. And I explained.
I'm so glad you did.
So I explained they had autism and that my son was developmentally delayed and couldn't sit by himself. I didn't even frankly know why I felt the need to explain it to him, but he was like, oh, I was just joking. And it's like, I guarantee you, if they had more of a visible disability, such as Downs, he wouldn't have said word one to me. And I remember just saying, why would you think that it was okay to say that? Like, how is that funny? Yeah. We're not amused.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Hey babes, welcome back. I'm sure you're all tan and rested and ready to take on the world. But before we really dive into this episode, which I'm extremely excited about, what are you drinking?
Well, I'm tan. I was rested. I was ready to take on the world. And then for my birthday, I got COVID. Woohoo! Yay! So the rested piece is not as much. So I am drinking something really boring, but I do feel I need credit for the fact that I had my first drink after completing my fabulous Paxlovid prescription because I was like, I'm having a freaking glass of wine. And I had every intention of bringing it with me, but just couldn't after one glass. So what I was drinking, if this counts, is a lovely glass of Sauvignon Blanc. I'm not a huge white wine fan, but when I do drink white wine, I drink Sauvignon Blanc. So now I'm drinking a Waterloo grape seltzer as befitting my still sick ass at this point.
Got it.
And you?
Well, I am drinking, just like you, a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. And it's chilled perfectly. And I have it in my chicken glass. Fiona is on here. And I'm also drinking water because, I like to be a hydrated bitch.
I love that, oceans apart, No, we're not oceans apart. No, we're like a state or two. Not even like a state apart. No, like we like the same varietal. Yay, yay, yay.
So tell me, how was the trip?
So yes, so we went on a cruise and we stopped in the Bahamas, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the West Indies, and it was really, really nice for the most part. We all got to unplug, do our thing. We saw some beautiful parts of the world. We snorkeled, we swam, ate too much. I got my SoCal recharge on with lots of sunbathing. And my British husband doesn't really do sun, so I have to get it in while I can. I mean, you can take the girl out of Southern California and all. Yeah. And my favorite thing ever, and I told Karen about this, I got up on a surfboard for the first time. That was checking off a big one on that bucket list for sure. Karen was giving me some pointers, but I honestly pretty much thought I would do a face plant. So I was super excited that I made it out.
You killed it. You killed it.
Oh, so excited. So my kids have been fortunate enough to live in different places in the world, and we've been fortunate enough to have traveled quite a bit. My husband and I lived abroad for a period in our childhood, bizarrely in the same country. So it was important to us, since our children have an international heritage, to expose them to as much of the world as possible. So we try to travel as much as we can.
That is so awesome. I love it. And I love, yes, exposing kids to different people, different places, different things. I think it's so important.
Yep.
And you and I were talking a little bit before about the company that you actually went with on this trip. And I think that this is something that all parents need to know about because it is so freaking cool. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. The company is called Autism on the Seas. And I can't say enough about what they do. To be completely honest, cruising was never something we even considered would work for our family. Like, never. So backing up a bit, right? My kids both have multiple special needs. Some of you that have been listening from the beginning know this, and I'll get into that in a minute. But as my son got older and he was more independent, it actually got tougher to travel with him. It was extremely difficult for him to regulate himself, and he really needed a space that he was comfortable to do that in. So it was rough to even go to someone's home when you have kids with special needs. I mean, everyone says that they understand, but it's quite another thing to watch an autism meltdown happen IRL. So we invested in a camper in order to travel when we got back from teaching overseas. My son was about 10, I think, and he started to struggle being anywhere really out in the community or that was unfamiliar. And so our reasoning was that this way he would always have a quiet, familiar place to be. He's always loved the outdoors. Both kids have loved camping, so it just kind of made sense. And Oregon has a real embarrassment of riches when it comes to amazing places to camp. What was interesting, though, is that he did so well with this kind of method of travel that it helped him improve. And we really, to a certain extent, outgrew it. And he was ready to do more. So I earned a trip with my health and wellness company to Cancun a couple years back. And he did so well in that situation that we realized he was really ready to adapt to some different ways of traveling. And that's when I found Autism on the Seas.
That is so incredible and so helpful for parents that have kids with any kind of disabilities, really. But before we get started, I really want to make sure that my language is updated. I was an elementary school counselor many, many moons ago when I was in the land of the 9 to 5. And we had special ed classes on our campus. Are they even still called special ed anymore?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the level that they're in. Typically, they're not going to be called a special ed class. There's different types of terminology for them, depending on the level of support that the student needs. Typically, they will have a special education program or what's called an individualized education program to receive special education services. But typically, the classes are not necessarily labeled special education. Long story,
Yeah.
another podcast.
Yeah, I would. It seems outdated to me. And my sister also has severe cognitive and learning disabilities. And so from my observation, growing up with her, also as my work as an elementary school counselor, I really could see what a challenge it is to be a person who has special needs and also to support someone with special needs, especially in like a traveling environment. And do we still say special needs?
Yeah. I mean, if you definitely know that the child or person has special needs, then yeah, absolutely. That's totally fine. It's the way I explain it is it's kind of like looking at someone and congratulating them on being pregnant, but they aren't, right? Like, make sure, right? I mean, for example, what does your sister prefer in terms of language?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't even know. We've never had, she lives in Washington and we don't have conversations like this, but I'm going to see her in October and I'm going to ask her, I'm going to ask her, what she prefers if it's even on her radar. I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, we're using 2024 terminology.
Yep, for sure. So just to kind of talk more about the issues with my kids to frame this. So my children both have autism spectrum disorder, PTSD, anxiety, and ADHD, and they both have sensory issues. My son's main triggers are noise, heat, waiting in line. He's much more developmentally impacted than my daughter. and requires the services of someone called a personal support worker. And we have that person here for about 55 hours a week to help him learn independent living skills. He will always need some kind of specialized support and more than likely never be able to live independently. But that's not to say he can't have an independent life. My daughter's main triggers are her brother, naturally, her anxiety, her ARFIDs, which is a type of extreme food anxiety, and being forced to do something called mask for long periods of time. If you don't know what that is, I'm not talking about wearing an actual mask. So this is, again, story for another episode. But briefly, girls with autism are often misdiagnosed or undiagnosed because in general, they are better at hiding characteristics and behaviors that would be considered odd or maybe different by others or atypical, right? They pick up on social clues much faster than boys and use that to air quotes pass as neurotypical. So for my daughter, the act of masking takes so much effort that her body literally shuts down and puts her to sleep when she has been doing this for a particularly rough or long time at school, for example. And she literally cannot be woken up. Like, seriously can't be woken up. I had to get a doctor's note for a medical protocol because there were teachers that didn't believe me. So we even had her evaluated by 2 different sleep specialists, one who zoomed in from Lithuania, believe it or not, and who specialized in sleep disorders. There was another one at Oregon Health Sciences University who specialized in pediatric sleep psychiatry. Yes, that is a specialty, because we thought she had narcolepsy. So we did a 24-hour sleep study with her hooked up to all sorts of machines and sensors. And I feel like this is the air quote episode. They had, air quote, never seen anything like it before. It's the story of my life, I swear to God.
Man, girl, I, like our listeners, am just learning so much about you and what a journey you have been on advocating for your kids. And it's pretty incredible.
Thanks.
Can you give me, we talked about this a little bit ago, but can you give me and also our listeners just a quick little tutorial on correct language that we use when you're talking about somebody with a disability? I mean, we hear a lot about neurodivergent. Does that apply here?
Yeah. And I'll just be straight up and say that there's a lot of opinions, controversy, conversations going on about this right now. So essentially, the idea is that a person shouldn't be considered as less of a person just because they don't act like, look like, or function like what we would call, quote unquote, air quotes, a normal or a neurotypical person. So a lot of this started when the deaf and blind communities started a movement to refer to themselves as the deaf community or the blind or visually impaired community in a way to be positively associated with the real community. For example, with the shared language, method of communication, really its own culture, right? So when I got my master's, we were taught the idea of people first language. The concept is that a person is not only about their disability, i.e., just because my kids have autism, it doesn't mean that that's the sum total of all the characteristics that they possess. Autism is just one of the things that makes them up as a human. So I prefer personally to refer to them as people with autism. However, in recent years, that's become a bit of a controversy in the autistic community. So there are people out there who prefer to be referred to as autistic or even unautistic. And a lot of that happened when the Autism Cares movement came out with those multicolored puzzle pieces that you tend to see as a symbol of the scope and nature of autism, right? Because they were trying to address this idea of if you know one person on the spectrum, then you know one person on the spectrum, because it is a spectrum of symptoms or presentations that aren't always applicable, right? So this idea that there are some symptoms that have to be present for a diagnosis, but others that aren't, but can often be what we call comorbid or literally cohabitate together with autism. So there were those in the autism community at that point who felt that the idea that they were a puzzle that had to be put back together again was insulting. I can understand that. But again, this started about the time the movie Rain Man came out. So everybody decided, because, you know, we love to paint broad brushes on things, right? Everybody decided people with autism were exactly like Dustin Hoffman's character. They were all geniuses with one interest who were socially inept, right? So to bring this very, very complex topic back to your original question, the term neurodivergent is used to describe really anyone that doesn't have a typical neurological presentation, but it can include people with autism or even people with an intellectual disability such as Down syndrome.
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women in midlife unapologetically design a life they're in love with. My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and juicy things I have coming up, like my in-person retreat called Exhale in October 2024. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. Whew.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So basically, it's super nuanced and personal and depends on how the individual wants to categorize themselves or not. So for people like me, maybe we ask. And if we're not comfortable doing that, the least labeling language that we can use until we know for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how anybody would want to be treated or asked.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us your mama perspective. Back to autism on the seas. Autism with the seas? On the seas. Anyway,
On the seas.
Back to this incredible company that you traveled with. What is it like traveling with kids with special needs? Because I know that there are parents out there that don't understand this. And I just think it's good we broaden everyone's perspective.
Yeah. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to people about it. So the thing with my kids, though, is that even though they are 14 and 17, they look, again, air quotes, here it is, normal when features of their disabilities are triggered. It can get really dicey. The idea is that it's about managing those triggers, or in behavior speak, we call those antecedents, before they become a giant problem. So the problem is that people often expect them both to be more functional and skilled than they are. And that's where the problem starts. So, for example, when we travel, there's a lot of preparation that's involved. So they both take quite a few meds. My son takes, God, I don't even know, 9 different meds 4 times a day. I think my daughter takes like 6 or 7. Honestly, I can't remember, 3 to 4 times a day. And then they both have PRNs, which are essentially as needed medications for certain situations. So before we travel, everything has to be dosed out and prepackaged in a way we can take them with us and have them readily accessible. And then we do our best to stay with their scheduled dosing times if we change time zones. That's step 1. Now,
oh my gosh.
I know, right? When we travel on planes, we usually divide and conquer since they don't do well sitting next to each other. Again, right? Sibling rivalry. Story is real. However, that gets,
I totally relate with that
right?
as well. So that, yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, the sibling rivalry thing. Oh my Lord. I tell you what.
Yes.
So,
and my kids are 26 and 28, and I still deal with that.
Seriously? Oh my
yeah.
God. I kept thinking it would get better. You're crushing my dream.
All right.
Good.
Okay, it does get a little better, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Please just let me dream for a little while longer. Thank you. Alrighty then. So it gets a little challenging, right? Now, Southwest just made an announcement that they're going to go back to assigned seating. Thank you, Jesus. But for now, right? Because they don't assign seats, that's an issue for us, right? So in that situation, we have to tell the gate agent about my son's developmental delays. He can't be seated by himself. And they're usually pretty good about accommodating us so that at least one of us can go ahead with him to pre-board. But we get nasty comments more often than you would think. So on this trip, just the return home, we had a tight connection. And Liam was super hungry, which can be a prelude to a meltdown. So we grabbed something as quick as we could to take on the plane and had arranged for pre-boarding since it was Southwest. So we're like, yay, we did it. We ready to congratulate ourselves for making it to the gate on time to board. The gate agent was like, well, you've missed pre-boarding. I'm like, yes, our flight was delayed. And then he proceeds to tell me I had the wrong boarding passes and basically to get myself organized. I literally had this stack of boarding passes, right? Because we were on God knows how many flights. And he's looking at the boarding passes with the stamp, giving us early boarding access because of a disability with the code and everything. And he's essentially arguing with me because I guess he thought I was gaming the system. Who knows, right? Then there was this elderly gentleman who asked, this is on a different flight, same trip, asked my daughter with a smile on his face, what's your excuse? As we're waiting to pre-board. And when I called him on it, I know you're shocked that I would do that. And I
I'm
explained,
so glad you did.
So I explained they had autism and that my son was developmentally delayed and couldn't sit by himself. I didn't even frankly know why I felt the need to explain it to him, but he was like, "Oh, I was just joking." And it's like, I guarantee you, if they had more of a visible disability, such as Downs, he wouldn't have said word one to me. And I remember just saying, why would you think that it was okay to say that? Like, how is that funny?
Yeah.
We're not amused.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say some foul language that you're going to
Please
delete out
do.
of here. So
No, I won't delete it. I won't delete it. I'll just bleep it. I need to get a creative blooper.
we need a bleeper because, man, I really want my F-bombs to be in here.
I know, girl.
I was thinking two things. First of all, I mean, I would just want to say, and
Yes,
second of all,
yes.
how we feel like we need, and I totally get this because I haven't been in your exact situation, but I feel like sometimes we get in this spot where we feel we need to explain ourselves or we need to verify. And it's like, why do we feel the need to do that to this stranger who's kind of being an asshole? Right. And by the way, why do moms have to carry all the damn boarding passes?
Thank you. I'm like trying to get my husband to do it. He's like, "What are you giving me this for? What's this?" I'm like, "Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
I thinking?" Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and honestly, it's better when my son was younger, we used to have to fly with specialized equipment for him. So he had ankle weights and a weighted vest. He went through this period. He was like, "Mommy, I fly away. Like I need to stay on the ground." So we're like, okay, right? So we always traveled. We had with a signed and dated letter from his developmental pediatrician, but sometimes even that didn't matter. So we've literally had to answer questions from TSA agents like, "Well, what's wrong with him?" So I don't know. I'm not quite sure why people feel the need to say that stuff out loud, but whatever. At any rate, one of the things that helped is we finally got the whole family TSA pre-check. Let me tell you, for those of us that travel a lot, I mean, it's like $80, like serious lifesaver. And that's helped cut a lot of it down big time because we don't have to deal with that. Not all, as you can see, but a lot of it, right? And then the other thing we do is we have them keep their noise canceling headphones with them because that also helps them both regulate a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. From a mama whose kids don't have disabilities, I just want to send you a big fat air hug right now.
Thanks, ma'am.
Traveling with kids, especially young kids and not young kids, is hard. And to have to deal with the public who is less than understanding or thinking of how what they're saying is affecting people is just frustrating and annoying and angering, honestly.
My name is Lisa Corachella McDowell, and I'm not just a healthy smoothie girl. Check out nextlevellifewithlisa.com, my website and centerpiece for all that I do. Connect with me about my free classes, the fabulous health and wellness products I have, literacy work, special education advocacy, and social media. I try to live my truth and put it all out there authentically. And for a special offer, go to nextlevellifewithlisa.com/podcast for some exclusive goodies for my Drinks with the Girls listeners. See you there.
Back to Autism on the Seas. What are the qualifications that families need to be eligible to cruise with this amazing company?
So yes, essentially what they provide, and we'll put this in the show notes, right? I'll put the link in there, but essentially they provide services for adults and families. What they say is living with children with special needs, including but not limited to autism, Down syndrome, Tourette syndrome, cerebral palsy, and all cognitive, intellectual, and developmental disabilities.
So it's not just for kids.
Well, kind of, sort of. So adults with special needs qualify, but typically they're part of a family that is being served. So I don't necessarily think they would be like travel agents for an adult with a disability that wanted to cruise. It's really kind of focused around family that have that within them, essentially. So, for example, there was a family on this cruise with a grandma, a son about maybe 17, and a daughter who was 20. The daughter was totally nonverbal. Actually, it was great. She had this t-shirt. Her mom bought this t-shirt for her, which I told her was the best thing. And it said, "I may be nonverbal, but my mom sure isn't. Try her." And I was like, oh my God, I love that. That's awesome.
You need that shirt.
Right? Totally. So the staff had to be on each side of her when we walked with the group in order to direct her and keep her kind of So that would be an example of some of the things that they would do.
So are there scholarships or any financial assistance available, or is it relatively reasonable?
Yeah. So they have a foundation. They raise money for families that can't afford it, and they make it as reasonable as they can by securing group rates and other specials. So outside of the cruise fare, just what you'd pay, they charge $300 per immediate family member for their services. And extended family, like my dad, when he went a couple times, are free, even though they help them too. You can also get one-on-one assistance as well. So have a dedicated person working with you. And it's more, but it's not outrageous. I mean, to be honest, it's pretty darn reasonable for everything that they do. They don't do a ton of cruises on the West Coast at this point, usually 2 cruises to Alaska in the summer, going out of Seattle. And then they've occasionally gone out of Long Beach or LA. So we're trying to petition them to do more of those because, of course, that's close to where we are. And they primarily partner with Royal Caribbean, but they also do occasional trips to resorts like Disney World or on the other cruise lines that are owned by Royal Caribbean. And they mainly do cruises to Mexico, the Caribbean, and Europe.
Okay, so just so our friends listening really get an idea of how amazing this is, because I feel like, and I think you've told me that, like, this is the difference between traveling or not traveling, like having this kind of a support.
100%.
So what exactly do they offer? Like if you're like, tell us, what do they really do?
So I honestly don't even know where to begin to start. So I'll just start at the beginning. So like I said, they make it possible for do. So they start helping long before we get on the ship. They arrange for us to board in a quiet way that speeds us to the front of the lines, allows us to do that boarding experience as efficiently, as quickly as possible. Remember, one of my son's triggers is lines, right? Like he'd be done. We couldn't even get on the ship. We have a section in the main dining room and the buffet that's reserved for the group that's in a quiet section. So the noise is limited and they don't have to be tripping over lots of people. We let them know ahead of time a couple of things, for example, that my daughter will always eat so she can get access to them. They reserve seats to all the shows and activities, so we have access early without a lot of people around. We will sometimes do excursions with them. They always have excursions. They're available to support us if we have a need at the last minute on any excursion we take. So, for example, on one of the excursions that we went on, it was super hot. My son was just not in that space and my husband wasn't feeling well. So I took the 2 kids with one of the staff members. But when we got to the beach club where we were going, it was dumping rain and he was done. He'd had it. So I had to get a cab to get us back there, but she stayed with my daughter. So my daughter could still stick around and enjoy it. And we got my son back to the cruise ship and life went on, right? So really, one of the things that they do is provide respite hours, right, in the evening and during the day for a period on sea days. So, we can actually relax and have a break on our vacation. And they help advocate for us on the ship. One of the things that they do that I've kind of taken to heart is they give us these little cards that kind of explain the situation. And it's really cool. I always keep a couple in my wallet because it basically says, "Hi, I'm a person with an intellectual disability. I may respond in ways that you wouldn't expect. Please be patient with me," so that you could just hand it. Right. And it's one of the things that I'm planning on arming my son with as he goes out in the community more, to be able to kind of let people know what's going on. So that's just kind of one of the ways that they do it. But they also help advocate for us on the ship. They form really important partnerships with our kids as well. My son takes a while to warm up to people. So it's been really wonderful to see him finally trust them enough to sit around through even most of a show without us, for example. And my daughter is never so happy as when she can ditch us and go to respite with AOTS on a cruise. And it's not always the same people, right? Like we've gotten to know a few of the people that have, like the leaders and stuff that do a lot of them, but it can be different people each time. But they wear orange, and so they call them the orange people. And so you can always find them and you always know what's going on. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Team Orange. So one example I shared, the difference that they make is when we went on our first cruise. So we went with my dad to Alaska. It was over 100 degrees, if you can believe it or not. We were coming back from, it was crazy, from an excursion. So there'd been a landslide at the port, so that they had to use these musters, which is like their fancy lifeboats essentially, to get people off and on the ship. So my son was done with the heat, and we saw the line to get on the ship and realized it was going to be a couple of hours, and he just lost it. So in a panic,
I would have lost it too.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Liam.
I wish I could. So in a panic, I called the group leader and she was like, no problem. Show your CPAS with your Autism on the Seas lanyard and your sticker. They're going to take care of you. And I'm like, right, whatever. Okay. Sure enough, they whisked us to the front of the line, got us on board. We were back on board in maybe 15, 20 minutes. Crisis averted.
That is so awesome. So just so we're clear, this is a cruise that all types of people are on. And this is just a service that Autism on the Seas provides
Correct.
for families.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Just wanted
Absolutely.
to clarify that.
Yep.
Okay. Do you know what the qualifications are for the staff? My daughter is in education and she's looking for a job. Travel.
I know, right? So I refer all my special education teacher buddies to them because it gives them the opportunity to go on these amazing trips. Actually, a good friend of mine who's also was Liam's elementary teacher was on this trip, which is really cool as a volunteer.
Oh, fun.
It is pretty rigorous. I'm not going to lie. So they
volunteer, you said.
Yes, I'll get to that. Yes. They have to have at least a 4-year degree relating to child development, behavior therapy, and or special education. I don't even know, honestly, that a teaching credential or even a master's in a particular educational field would qualify. They need to be specialized. So, for example, we've cruised with a particular volunteer twice now who was a nurse. That's considered specialized training. They have to have what they call extensive experience caring for children and adults of all ages with developmental disabilities, the ability to manage all levels of behaviors or functioning abilities of all types of developmental disabilities. They have to interview, they have to be background checked. I mean, like, there can be kids on there with like feeding tube protocols. I mean, it runs the gamut, right?
Mm-hmm,
and yes, It's all volunteer. They are not paid. They pay for their own airfare, but their cruise is fully paid for. They can get tips from families, and a lot of them also, they don't do it for this, but they can accrue loyalty club miles by doing this. So then they take their own families on cruises after that. So a lot of the staff have pretty high levels in the loyalty club at this point. So they're able to do that at reduced rates. So it's a way also, though, for younger teachers to take nice vacations and for older retired teachers to keep busy and volunteer. It's pretty amazing. I've seen families on these cruises with kids that have, severe needs. Elopers, like kids that run off, nonverbal kids, like I said, feeding protocols, non-mobile. There's also a lot of single moms that come. And I can't even imagine what this must mean to them.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like, how would you even do that if something like this didn't exist? I mean, just traveling with kids in general can be a challenge. We would, started our kids off early traveling when they were young. My daughter was a nightmare, especially to fly with. And looking back now, she has social anxiety. Plus, she's extremely stubborn. So, as a 3-year-old, she was not quite understanding why she had to sit in her seat for 5 hours. And my ex-husband literally told her one time he was going to throw her off the airplane, which I wouldn't have stopped, honestly.
She had leadership skills, early leadership skills.
For sure.
Yeah, I remember a professor of mine in graduate school who, ironically, was a behavior specialist, told a story about being on a plane with her infant son who was having a meltdown, just screaming at the top of his lungs. And she finally stood up and said as loud as she could, "Does anyone else have any suggestions?"
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah,
because literally anyone who has traveled with a child has some understanding of that frustration. So what are some other ways besides this incredible company that you've discovered that make traveling with kids with or without special needs easier for parents?
Yeah. So we've had to learn a lot of adaptations on the fly, no pun intended, very quickly. So looking back with my kids, there was always signs along the way, but both of my kids were diagnosed very late. So when my daughter was about 6 months old and my son was 3, the global financial meltdown was happening. My husband was struggling to get a permanent teaching job, and we decided to teach overseas to give our family the best chance of supporting ourselves. So it's like sink or swim, right? So I researched all sorts of things, read a ton of books. I'd say my top 3 hacks for traveling with 2 kids would be: number 1, grab yourself a cheap umbrella stroller and an Ergo baby carrier. I like the Ergo because they're soft and they pack easily, like they don't have a frame, right? I pack my kids over literally 4 continents that way. The older one in the stroller, the younger one on my back. She got very good riding on someone's back because, of course, we lived in Africa and they just grab a piece of fabric and like throw them on their backs. That's what her nanny used to do, right? So they'd look at my bourgeois Ergo and think, what is wrong with this white woman? Like, just grab a towel. Like, what is your problem, lady? It's like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Number 2, if you got an infant, breastfeed at least through your trip if you can, or always travel with the ability to quickly warm a bottle. It helps keep their immunity up. They settle down. They fuss less. It keeps their ears from popping. I remember back in the day, I'd pumped all this breast milk for a long transcontinental flight, and TSA right here in the good old US of A looked at it and made me dump it out.
Oh my gosh, that's liquid gold.
I was yeah. Yeah, my husband's like, don't they have the power to arrest us? I'm like, seriously? You freaking kidding me with this? And then the other one that I do is I'd go to the dollar store and I'd wrap up a bunch of little things. So coloring books and crayons, like small toys, card games, like whatever, right? So they'd each get a little present, right? For each flight to unwrap, right? Sometimes I give them more than one on a long flight. If it was long, quite, 2 or 3, right? And then they would have this fun thing to unwrap, and it was new and novel, and they entertained themselves, so they weren't on a screen 24/7. So those are probably my top 3 biggies.
Yeah, I would do the same, not wrap them, but just I would always, each of them had a little backpack full of stuff. And now that looking back, like, I feel like I overdid it. Like I overpacked, I like packed too much stuff, but I was like, okay, I'd rather be prepared and have too much stuff, than have them freaking out because they don't have something to do. And of course, snacks was always a must, making sure people were fed and well rested, although it's not always easy when you're traveling.
Yeah. Low blood sugar plus autism meltdown is not someone anyone wants to deal with.
No.
Believe me.
And one of the hacks that we did when I was married, my ex-husband and I took my sister-in-law, with us on a trip. My kids were, I think, like 3 and 5, and she got a free trip to Mexico, and she was another set of eyes, another set of arms, because, at that age, being around a swimming pool and whatnot. And, it gave us a chance just to, like, if we wanted to have lunch together and she could watch the kids or something like that,
And honestly, that's the idea behind Autism on the Seas, really. So my daughter has come to love it so much. She helps out a ton when they're younger kids in the group, which is always really fun. She's like Miss Popularity. All these kids calling her name. We go out to breakfast and Gigi, sit by me. Gigi.
So cute.
And it's also honestly been an amazing way to help her in particular come to terms with her brothers and her own disabilities, because she's a lot more high functioning than he is. So she gets to be a leader. She understands that while her struggles are real and hers, she has advantages and skills that some of these kids will never have. Between that and the fact that we've lived in 2 different countries overseas where white people were the minority by far, I am really proud of the fact that we've been able to give them that experience of being a minority and give them the perspective of others in the world that they may not have been able to have anywhere else.
Absolutely. And this just thought popped in my head is that, they are definitely Renee and Kenny's grandchildren. Like, I see you living this life that I know your parents had not a hand in, but like certainly, support it. I don't know what the right word, but anyway, it just gives me goosebumps thinking of Renee and how, even though she's not here, she's still impacting your kids.
Yeah, it does to me too. And I mean, she always talks about traveling being one of the happiest times she had. And we lived in India and Zimbabwe, and they visited us in both places. And that was before she got sick. And I have just treasured memories and photos, and yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, they were the ones that did it. They instilled the travel bug in me. And, if my husband were here, he'd probably say the same thing about his parents. So
that's incredible, because I mean, it's not like you were just going to Cabo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've taken my kids to other places too, not just Mexico, but you guys, like, we're not just talking about a vacation to Mazatlan, right? Like, you guys really did it. And I see Kenny and Renee so much in that. And of course, the parents.
I tell you what, there was quite a few people that I was like, yeah, we're moving, okay, she's 9 months old. He's almost 3. Hey, we're moving to Zimbabwe.
That's wild.
They were just like, have you lost your damn mind?
Hey, fabulous Drinks with the Girls listeners. Guess what? We have something exciting happening here at Drinks with the Girls. We have a way for you, our listeners, to be involved. You can be part of our Drinks with the Girls Pod Squad support team. Creating a sisterhood of empowered women is our goal, and we are so grateful you are here.
You can help us get the word out about Drinks with the Girls because we want all women to feel the support of a powerful community behind them. Here's what you need to do. Get in touch with one of us via email and let us know you want to be an official part of the Drinks with the Girls Pod Squad. Go to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe or follow Drinks with the Girls if you haven't already. Every month, we need you to share.
Share with a girlfriend via text, share to your email newsletter, share on your socials, share from the rooftops. The more you share, the more chances you have to win fabulous prizes at the end of every month. Simply send us a screenshot every time you share. Every share is a chance to win, so the more you share, the more chances you have to win each month.
Here are some of the awesome prizes available. A coupon code for $100 off a 4-month coaching package with Karen. A discount coupon towards your favorite Arbonne health and wellness products with Lisa. A spot on the podcast. A 60-minute goal setting session with Karen. A 30-minute prep session for your child's upcoming IEP meeting with Lisa. 30-day midlife self-care journal PDF. And the list goes on.
We are so excited to have you as part of the Drinks with the Girls Pod Squad support team, and we are excited to see who wins each month because after all, we're all in this together. Cheers.
Cheers.
What are the top things that you would really like our besties to walk away from this important episode with?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that travel has done for me, and please, dear listeners, I am completely aware of my privilege. I'm completely aware of the fact that not everybody can just pick up and move to a foreign country or go on a cruise or do all these things. So I want to be conscious as I'm saying this, that I understand the innate privilege of that statement. So what I'm saying comes with that caveat, right? But I think even if people aren't able to travel, it's just get out of your own comfort zone, man. Like, do something that you don't think you can do. Try a new food. Go somewhere you haven't been. Talk to somebody you wouldn't have normally talked to. Smile at someone. Like, just do something to get out of your little bubble. We all got so good during the pandemic of just like living in our little bubble and shutting the world out. And I don't know, to a certain extent, I kind of feel like we've never recovered from that, right? But just, it goes back to our first episode, right? Be kind. Just freaking be kind, man. Just people are, I want to make sure I'm a lifelong learner and that I'm always open to learning. And like we said in our first episode, if we screw up, tell us kindly. And I would hope that other people do the same and not double down on justifying why they were right to say something so awful in the first place. That's a whole other rabbit hole that I'm not going to jump down in. But yeah, I think that that's really kind of my message is get out of the bubble, do something different, do something that's hard, do something that's going to be a giant pain in your butt to take your kids to do, because yeah, it'll be a giant pain in your butt, but they're going to have some experiences that they wouldn't have had, and it will broaden their horizons. I mean, my daughter was literally the only white kid in her little Indian nursery school in Mumbai. I can't replicate that here. She would have never known what it was like to be a minority. And it was an adventure, that's for sure. I mean, there are parts of it I wouldn't want to repeat. But yeah, I think those are my messages. Just be kind, put yourself in other people's shoes, and get out of your comfort zone a little bit and experience the world.
Yes, ma'am. You're singing my song. And I think too, because when we as parents get out of our comfort zone and do things like that, we are showing our kids that, yeah, this is how you do it. Like, this is how you live life, right? We don't stay in our little box. We don't stay in our cul-de-sac. We experience the world. We experience new people. We experience new things and foods, right? And I mean, yeah, it's scary sometimes. I mean, just trying to get my man to eat sushi, man. You should see the look of terror on his face.
You go, girl. You slay that dragon.
I told him, I'm not taking you to the good sushi restaurant until you stop eating California rolls.
I was going to say, like, have we gotten past the California roll stage? Because
he's, you know what? I give him credit because he'll try it every once in a while. He'll be like, okay, he'll do it. But he, it's not his vibe. And I love him for continuing to give it a shot. But
pushing his comfort zone.
Exactly. Hey, man, if you're with me, you got to know that's going to happen. But I just feel like showing that to our kids. And like you said, you know, the kindness piece, like just being aware that not everybody is like you, not everybody is like me, and they might be struggling with things we have no idea. It's not apparent on the outside. So don't be so quick to judge. And, you know, I think that as we've gotten older, hopefully we've kind of figured that out to an extent that we have no idea what somebody else is dealing with. Things aren't apparent to the eye, you know, so unless you have something supportive to say to a fellow human, just shut.
There's that. There's that. I might put it a different way so our censors don't bleep us, but it's all good. I'll fix it in editing. It's totally fine.
Damn. Mel Robbins gets to cuss on her podcast.
I know. Well, we'll have to try it and see if they censor us. Apparently, and this is news for our listeners, we're now big in several countries. We've been this is crazy, people. We've been downloaded in the US, obviously, but Trinidad and Tobago, shout out, the UK, Germany, and Russia.
Nice.
Like, maybe
we're multinational. Right? Is that right? Is that
yeah. Maybe Putin's listening to us. Oh my God. Drinks with the girls influencing Putin. Now that would be hilarious. Oi.
Yeah, oi.
I know. Well, y'all, thank you for listening to us. And for this episode, I hope we've given you some things to think about and some ideas to kind of get out there and do things that you maybe wouldn't before. But as always, thanks for listening. Like and share and subscribe. Send this to someone that you think might enjoy listening to it. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.